So now what is HTML? Why do we learn it? What do we use it for? What is HTML? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So when you think about it, HTML, hypertext markup language, what it really is think of it like allowing you to add the structure to your website. Something that allows you to add structure and content like images, text, links, and so forth. So when you build anything, you're eventually going to add nice, pretty paint or pretty bricks, pretty coloring to it. You're going to add some color to it and some style, but first you have to have the content, you have to have the structure first. And that's what HTML does. HTML allows you to add structure to a website. It allows you, as I mentioned, to have images, text, links, to add those types of things and more to your website. So when you think about it, you think about it just like it's a document. When you have any document, you're going to have headings and paragraphs, maybe text, and the elements, the syntax of HTML, the elements in HTML allow you to add specific types of content. So for example, this is a paragraph element. You have an opening part and a closing part, opening tag and closing tag, and the content goes here. So certain types of elements, specific types of elements allow you to add specific types of content to your website. So essentially what it does, you have to learn the syntax and the structure of HTML and the structure of an HTML document. And when you do that, as I mentioned, HTML adds the structure. CSS does the style, but it's HTML that adds the structure. And before you style anything, you got to have something to style. So that's why you have HTML, and that's why we study HTML and learn it, because it allows you to add content to your website before you do any styling. So you can add a bunch of things. You can add headings, you can add, text, articles, blogs, whatever you want to type, whatever you want to add, you can add to your website. You can add images, videos, even hyperlinks. You can link to other pages, other web pages, other things on the web, even pages within your own website you can link to, which is essentially what a website is, links to different pages in your website. You can add that. And when you add those hyperlinks and you go to any website, you're going to see content there. And when you see images and text and those types of things on the screen, when you see that, know that HTML played a part of it. More than likely, they use HTML to help add that text and those images and that content on the website. That's what they did with HTML. And that's what we use it for. That's why we study it. You can also create lists and tables and a number of different things with HTML. So think of it like it's a document. Almost think of it like it's a document. And when you have any document, you're going to have headings, you're going to have paragraphs, you're going to have images, you're going to have text in your document. And that's essentially what HTML does. It allows you to add this content to your website and bring it to life, if you will. So this is what we use HTML for. This is why we learn it. And I just wanted to share that in this quick video to let you know this is what we use HTML for. Thank you for watching. Now, getting ready to write HTML. When it comes to writing HTML, what you use to write HTML is a simple text editor. And the good thing about it is your computer, if you have a Mac-based computer or a Windows-based computer, you already have a text editor that comes, a program with a text editor in it that comes on your computer already for free. So if you have a Mac computer, it's called TextEdit. You'll be able to find TextEdit on your computer. And if you have a Windows-based computer, it's called Notepad. And that's all you need to start to begin write HTML is a text editor. And as I mentioned, they come standard on any Mac-based or Windows-based computer. They come already on that computer for free. That's all you need to get started in terms of writing HTML, as well as in terms of building a website. You really just need a simple text editor to do that. And to get started, it's already on your computer. And before we get anything else, let's talk a little bit about syntax. Now, syntax is important when it comes to any language or any programming language. There's a certain set of rules or phrases or things that you follow in order to communicate in any language. Well, programming languages are no different. As a matter of fact, it's even more important when it comes to programming languages because you really have to be very specific when it comes to a computer and being able to tell a computer exactly what you need it to do. So a computer needs to be given very specific instructions. It's not like a dog or something, a person, a human being where you can just like do something or throw a stick or tell somebody to do something and they can figure it out on their own. Well, a computer needs to be given very specific instructions. And if you don't quite write it the right way, sometimes you might get an error message. And then all it is the computer saying, hey, I didn't understand what you meant by what you wrote, and you have to fix it in a way that the computer can understand it. So for HTML, there's something called tags and elements. And these tags and elements have opening and closing parts of them, as you can see. So an element is made of an opening and a closing tag, and the content goes right in between there. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But before we get further, let's talk a little bit about the structure of an HTML document. Now, when you write an HTML document, the structure of that document begins with this doc type HTML declaration. You declare at the top of it, at the beginning of your file, that this is an HTML file. And what you're doing is you're telling the browser that this is a file that I want you to use the most current standards of HTML, the most current version of HTML, in order to show my website on the computer screen. So you're declaring that up front that you're using the latest version of HTML. Then you have this element, this HTML element, and it comes with an opening and a closing part. That begins your document right after the doc type declaration. You have an HTML element that begins the document. Then you have a head element. And this head element contains things that are typically not seen on the screen. So you have an opening part and a closing part. And in between there, you have things like the title for the website that shows up at the very top of the window, which we'll see in a minute. You also have links to like your style sheets or description. A number of things are contained in this head information, metadata, that you don't see, that's kind of behind the scenes, under the hood, so to speak, of the website itself. So here's where you put all that information. And then you have a body section. And the body section is where you're going to do most of your work. That's where everything that you see on a website is shown, is contained. So the images, the paragraphs, if you have artwork, videos, you put that within the body element. And that obviously has a lot of content in it. And that's where you're going to do most of your work when it comes to your website. And then you end your document. You end it with this closing tag for this HTML element that closes the document right here. And that tells the browser that this is the end of this document from an HTML perspective. So let's take a look. What we'll see now is that, how does this actually look and work? How do we use some of these elements? And we're going to write that in a couple of different ways. Now, there's a couple things to use. We talked a little bit about the paragraph element. That paragraph element follows the same style. We have an opening part of it. Then whatever you want to write in the between goes there, the words, and then the closing part of that element, and it'll show up right on the screen like that. You also have a heading. So there are different types of elements, and each element tells the browser a different thing, a different piece of information. And that's why it's important to be syntactically correct, because you actually have your browser reading what's on your file and rendering it in a certain way. Also, sometimes you have people who are using screen readers, and so they really may not be able to see your website, and they're following along because maybe they're visually impaired. They're following along with other technology. So it's important to be correct in how you're writing this on your HTML file. So you use a heading. And a heading just tells the computer, the browser, this is an important piece of information. So let's say right here that this is my first website. I use an H1 heading for that. You can set headings in very big font, if you will, big bold space, and they are headings just like you might see in a report, or you might see in a book or a book report you might write. You have headings and then you have content that comes underneath. Well, H1, H2, H3, these are all headings all the way down to H6 that are within HTML that you can use, and they're different sizes from largest to smallest. And that's how you use it. So you have a heading elements from H1 to H6, and you have paragraph elements. And then you also have something called a title element. And that title element goes in the head section of your HTML file, and that tells you what the name of the website is. And we'll see that in just a minute in our exercise, but that title element goes in the head section, and that goes at the very top of the window, and it tells you what the name, a special name of that website might be. So it follows this pattern. Here you have your opening part, your opening tag, the content goes here, and then your closing title tag right here. And that's the same pattern you'll follow, the format you'll follow for almost any HTML element: an opening, a content, and then closing. There are some elements that don't have closing tags, which we'll talk about some of those as we go through this course, but for the most part, this is what you do. Content goes here, and then your opening and closing tags go on this side. And we'll see more about that in just a minute. Now we're going to talk a little bit about exercise 1, but before we get into exercise 1, we're going to talk first a little bit about text edit as well as Notepad, because those are the two most common text editors that come on your computer, either your Mac computer or your Windows-based computer, text edit and Notepad. So we're going to talk a little about how to get that, how you might access that, and what that looks like. And then also we have a separate video. Please be sure to look at that to choose another text editor, because you may or may not want to use the text editors that come on your computer, because they're pretty straightforward. They're pretty bland, if you will. They don't have a lot of bells and whistles, but you can do anything you need to do with a website with it. But you may want to check out Sublime Text, Atom, and Brackets, or some other text editors that are available to you in order to be able to try using them. That may be more useful to you as you're learning how to use HTML. Now I'm going to teach you how to download Sublime Text. Now, if you go to sublimetext.com, you go to Sublime Text, you'll see this is the landing page or something thereabouts that you'll see. And then what you can do is you can download it. If you hit the download button, it will give you downloading for whatever type of operating system you have, whether it's OX for Mac or Windows or so forth. It'll give you that information. And then all you need to do is click download. It'll go to your downloads section. It's running Sublime Text, building it. And as soon as you do that, as simple, all you have to do is just drag it into your applications folder if you're already on a Mac. Now this just simply lets me know that I already have Sublime Text downloaded onto my computer, so I don't need to do it here. I'm going to click stop. But for you, all you need to do is follow the instructions, and it is as simple as going to sublimetext.com, clicking on download, and selecting the operating system for the kind of computer you have, and just clicking that information, and it will download to your computer. But it's one thing I want to point out to you about Sublime Text. Sublime Text may be downloaded and evaluated for free. However, a license must be purchased for continued use. So there currently is no enforced time limit for this evaluation period. So I don't know how long it would take before they, ask you for money, but you can download it for free. You can use it for an unspecified amount of time. What you'll see is a little pop-up window that'll come on your screen that'll ask you to purchase it. If you choose to, you can just decline. It's up to you, however you'd like to do it. But as I mentioned here, it can be downloaded and evaluated for free, but you eventually must purchase a license to continue to use it, and there is no currently enforced time limit for that evaluation period. When you open up Sublime Text, what you're probably going to see is a blank screen. And one of the common features of text editors is the ability to customize it. So when you see this blank screen, one of the things you can do is go up here to Sublime Text and select Preferences, and you can go down to Color Scheme, and this color scheme and theme will allow you to change the look and feel of the text editor, if you will. So you click on Color Scheme, and you can select one of these other color schemes that will let you have a dark background versus a light background. It's whatever you like to choose. You can play around it, what you prefer. And this may be what you're seeing up now, but you can play around it if you like. And one of the other things you can do in terms of customization here really quickly is not only can you change the color scheme, but you can change the theme. And for this one, in order to kind of make you see what that looks like, you can go up first. Let's check out View. And View will allow you to open up a sidebar. And if you open up a sidebar, you'll see a place where you can have open files. And this is where our files will go when we are actually working on projects. And it's kind of the wrapping around the window in which you're going to be typing. If you go back up to Sublime Text and you hit Preferences again, and instead of Color Scheme, you hit Theme, it'll allow you to pick and choose perhaps a different theme for the look and feel of your text editor and where you're going to be typing. So that's one of the things you can do. Another thing you want to do with the text editor and with Sublime Text is you'll want to go down here where it says Plain Text, and you want to go up and select HTML, because that's what we're going to be dealing with, and it'll let Sublime Text know that we're dealing with HTML. And one of the great things about a text editor is it has a lot of functionality in it, and actually fills in a lot of things for you before you even finish typing it. So here, because it knows that we're on an HTML document, if I start to hit HTML, it will automatically, as you see, start to notice that I'm typing an HTML document. And if I hit that and hit enter, it will populate for me the actual structure of an HTML document. And you can see right here, everything is kind of laid out for you just as we discussed. And if I went up here and I changed the theme here, it'll just look differently based on the theme you want to choose. So it's up to you how you want to make that look. In addition, not only can you change the color scheme and theme here, and I'm going to change it back to this just to make it look a little different. You can also go to Preferences, color scheme, theme, and then also font. And you can make things larger if you want to, or you can make it smaller, whatever you choose, your preferences. So those are just a few things that you can play around with the text editor, and specifically with Sublime Text. Just make sure you're checking out what color schemes you want and how you want the look and feel to be yourself. Make sure that you also want to go down here and make sure you're dealing with an HTML document, because that's going to allow you to save it as an HTML document. And if you want to view the sidebar, you just go up here to View and select View for Sidebar. And that way you should be able to get started.